Hey guys, welcome to this tutorial. My name's ThaTimster. Today I'm going to be doing part 5 of how to make enemy AI in the Blender game engine. So again, if you haven't seen the previous tutorials, highly recommended you do that. However, if you don't want to, there is a starting.blend in the description along with a finished.blend. So without further ado, let's get started. So in our last state, what we did is we went and set up, I think, state 4 and state 3, got those all working, and then state 5 as well, which we just left off with an always, so it continuously played the melee animation. So to make sure that our enemy here doesn't get stuck playing the animation continuously, what we're going to do is underneath the enemy movement, so we'll select our enemy movement cube here. Under the enemy movement we're going to add a censor, and this is going to be a delay. And how long do we want this delay to be? So we'll check how long the melee action is, 15 frames, so we'll make a delay of 15, and that should just be fine. Then on the enemy movement side here, I'm going to add a state, an AND controller, join the two together like that, and I'm going to set it back to state 4, I think it is. Basically when 15 sort of units or logic ticks have gone by, then it will set it back to state 4 to check whether the enemy is still close, and if they are, obviously set it back to state 5 and so on. Okay, cool, so we'll minimize all those like so, and that should be that state done. However, if we do go close, our enemy will just be playing an action. There won't actually be anything happening to our player. So, to make sure that our player does take some damage, what I'm going to do is press Shift S, cursor to center. I'm going to make my window a little bigger here. Oh, like so. And then Shift S, cursor to center again, then Shift A, and I'm going to add myself a cube. I'm going to move it up a bit, and something like that should be fine. I'm going to press S to scale. It's going to be dynamic. But it's also going to be ghost, so it'll be an actor and a ghost, and you can have collision bounds, but it's a cube, so I don't really think we should need it. Then to this cube, what we're going to do is we're going to call it melee damage, like that, and give it a property melee, and that can just be a float, that's fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press M and move it to layer 2. Then on our character here, what I'm going to do is Shift S, cursor to center again, and Shift A, and here I'm going to add an empty, like so, move it up a bit, and we'll move it across, and this is going to be spawning in our melee damage, or our melee cube, when our character is playing the hitting animation. So I'm just going to move it down somewhere around here, maybe GY a bit, something like that. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold down Shift and select my movement cube. So we'll go along and we'll find our empty on this side. Then I'm going to add an edit object, and then what I'm going to do is the AND controller here, I'm going to join that up to this edit object. We can just call this melee if you want to, and it's going to be spawning in our melee damage. There we go. It's going to spawn it in for a total time of 10, there we go, and what it's going to do is our empty here, if we go to local, we want it to push out the cube outwards like that, so on the negative Y, so select local here, and give it a bit of negative Y velocity. So if our player is close enough, then he'll get hit by this cube and take some damage. Then with my empty selected, I'm going to hold down Shift, select the movement cube, press Ctrl P, and parent. Then I'll minimize that, and minimize that as well. Then I'm going to press P, and as you can see, our player walks over here, wait for him to get down, and we'll go closer like this, and if we get close enough, there we go, you can see it's spawning in the cube around the ankles. Just to make sure the collisions are working properly, I'm going to move this forward just a little bit, and then on layer 2 I'm going to select my cube, and what I'm going to do to this is under the physics, I'm going to select collision bounds. Then I'm going to go to layer 1 again. Now the next thing we have to do is set up our death state. So we'll select our enemy movement again, go to state 6 down here, or maybe we should go across. No, I'll keep it all on the same block. So down here. So if you watched the previous tutorial, you would have noticed we did an animation both for body shot and headshot. So what I'm going to do is split them up onto different states just to keep it nice and simple. So this first one here I'm going to have as headshot. So I'm going to add an always censor, minimize that, we don't need that. Go to our enemy rig, and we need another animation, so add action, and we're going to go here, enemy rig action, and we'll select our enemy rig to find out where it starts. So I think 3:30 was when the melee animation finished. So this is going to start at 3:30, and we'll scroll along till it finishes, so somewhere down here, I think 380. So we'll type that in there, and we'll join those two up, like so. Oh, add an AND controller, join that to that, and that to that. Okay, cool, but we'll also need a gun animation, so under the gun, we'll add an action, and there's going to be gun action, and again 330 to 380. And just for me to know what they are, under the action here, I'm going to rename it to headshot, like that, minimize that, go to the bottom, and do headshot again, and minimize that. Okay, and I'll just make this window bigger, and then here we're going to join this to the bottom, to the headshot. On top of that though, we don't want our player staying constantly in the scene after he's died. Obviously we do want him to disappear eventually. On this side here we're going to add a property, then on this side we're going to add an always, but this time on true, and we'll join that up to our property like so, and it's going to assign, it's not going to assign, it's going to add timer -1, so it's going to minus off the 660 again, and this is how long we want our sort of player mesh to stay in the scene. Maybe 10 seconds might be long enough, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a property when timer is equal to, and this will be 60, because we've taken off 600, which is 10 seconds. So when it's equal to 60, then we'll minimize that, and on this side we're going to add a property, and we're also going to add an edit object. This one here is going to reassign timer to 660. However, we're not going to connect it to this one. We need to add another AND controller and join that one to that, and assign it to 660, and then also join it to the edit object, and this is just going to be an end object, so it will just get rid of the object after that amount of time. So we'll just set this to tap just in case. Minimize that, and minimize that. Then the next thing I'm going to do is set up the next state, so the body shot. So I'm going to go to state 7 or state 8 or whatever you want to call it. Then under the enemy movement, I'm again going to add an always censor, add another always censor, this one on true this time, and we need another 2 animations. So under the rig, add an action. It's going to be body shot. Body shot, like so, if I can spell properly. Enemy rig, and again I think that was 380. I'll just skip along here. If you notice in the top here, if we move it down a bit, he resets back at 390, I think it is. There we go. So it'll be 390, and then we'll select our rig to find the final keyframe, which is 440. So what we're going to do, select the movement cube again, and under our enemy rig here, we're going to do 390 to 440, 440, like so, and then we're going to add an AND controller, join that up to the first always, and then join this up to the action, like so. We also need one for the gun, so action for the gun. This is going to be gun action, and it's going to be from 390 to 440 again. Okay, and we'll call this body shot as well. And just join that up, so I have to make the window a lot bigger, and join this one up to that one. Okay, there we go. Now we need to get our properties working again, so make this window smaller, make sure the movement cube is selected. Then on our enemy movement here, we'll just make our window bigger if we can. We're going to add a property. It's going to add timer -1. Oh, -1, like so. Then we're going to add an and controller. Join that to that, and that to that. Then on this side here, we'll add another property, and this time it's going to be when timer is equal to 60, like that. Then we'll add an and controller, join that to that, set it to a tap. And then on this side here, we'll minimize that one, add a property again, and an add object. So the property here, we'll join that to that, and it's going to assign timer back to 660, just to reset it. And it's going to assign timer back to 660, like so. Then along here, I'm going to put that in there, and we're going to select edit object. And that should be most of it done, so minimize all those. And minimize these ones here. Okay, so I think that is the death animations done. Now we need some sensors for our enemy, so when he does get shot, we know what body part he's been shot in. So what I'm going to do, first of all, with my enemy movement selected, is I'm going to add one more property, and this is going to be his health. So we'll type in health, it's going to be an integer, and for now we might just set it to be 100. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is scroll back to frame 0 down here, so we have a restarting pose. Then I'm going to press Shift S, cursor to center, Shift A, and down here what we're going to do is add a cube. And again, this is going to be our headshot sensor, so we want this relatively in the same spot as our head. So I'm just going to press numpad 3 to go into side view, press Z to go into wireframe, and then I'm going to press SY to scale on the y-axis, move it in a bit, and GZ to move it down. So we want it fairly accurate, and then I'm going to press numpad 1 to go into front view, and then SX to scale on the x-axis, and I'm going to hold down shift so I can do it in small increments. And something like that should be good. Okay, and then I'm going to make this window over here a lot bigger, so the panel, and instead of cube, this is going to be called headshot sensor. Headshot sensor. Then under the physics for this, we're going to select sensor. It's going to detect actors. We'll leave it visible just for now, and it's going to have collision bounds. Okay, cool, so that's the headshot sensor done. Then I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, and GZ to move it down on the Z axis. Then I'm going to press numpad 3 and then Z to go into wireframe, and now we'll adjust this, so SY, and just scale it out slightly like that. A little bit bigger than the player won't really matter, but something like that should be fine. Then SZ to scale on the Z-axis, and this sensor here will actually have to be for our entire player. So I'm going to press SY, get it to get, you know, the sort of forearms and most of our character's body. Then I'm going numpad 3 again, and we might get the sort of top half of his legs, because they're fairly important and they'll be pretty painful to be shot in. So something like that. Then numpad 1, and I'm going to press SX to scale on the x-axis, and we'll just get his upper arms in there as well. I'm going to go to texture view. All the settings are fine for that as well. Only thing that's missing is the name. We don't want headshot sensor .01. We want body shot sensor, and we'll delete the 01 because there's only one of it. Okay, cool. So there we go. Now what we're going to do is hold down shift, select both sensors, hold down shift again, and select the movement cube down the bottom. I'm going to press Ctrl P and parent it. So the next thing we're going to do is on this sensor, I guess a body shot sensor, I'm going to add a collision. It's going to be when it collides with the property bullet, even just on a tap. And in the name here, I'm just going to type in bullet, like so. Then on the headshot sensor, I'm going to again add a collision. It's going to be for bullets, and we'll call the collision bullet as well. and we'll set it to tap. So just before we hook this all up, there is one problem, and as you notice, if we go along the animation timeline, when a player is scanning the area, most of his head is really covered by the headshot sensor, so that's fine. But if you notice, when he ducks down, the sensors don't duck down with him, meaning you can shoot where he used to be and he'll still die. So what we need to do is actually animate these. So what I'm going to do is go to the start of this animation. So I might just select the movement cube, go to state 4 where he ducks down, minimize these two, and we'll go down to his duck down. So it starts at 280 and finishes at 310. So at 280 down here, I'm going to select my body shot sensor first, and then I'm going to press I, insert location rotation, and then what I'm going to do is go along to 310. As you can see, our whole player is moved, so I'm going to press RZ to rotate on the Z axis, and I'll type in -90, and then move it down a bit, like so. And this is going to have to be fairly low to deal with most of our players, so maybe something down here, something like that. Okay, and then once you're happy with it, we can press I, insert location rotation. Then we're going to go back to 280. Easy shortcut for this is just to press the down arrow on the keyboard, and it will skip to the nearest keyframe. Then we're going to select our headshot sensor, press I to insert a location rotation keyframe, click on it obviously, and then go to 310. And here, as you can see, it's way off, so I'm going to press RZ -90, and then I'm going to move it down just like so, and we'll move it along the x-axis as well, and move it down like that, and RZ again, and move it across. Okay, and we'll move it this way as well. And I'll quickly just change this to global again, and then I'll just press GX, and we'll try to balance out both sides. And then once you're happy with that, we can press I, insert location rotation, and there we go. Now if we scroll along the timeline, you'll notice the sensors are turning slightly funny, but I mean it covers most of the player, and that's the most important part. So again, I think it's just we've flipped the -90 and 90 wrong. So on our headshot sensor, I'm going to add an action. This is going to be for headshot sensor, and this is going to start at frame 280 and end at frame 310, like so. This is going to be called, I can guess headshot could work, but it is ducking down, so we'll just call it duck down for now, just like the other ones. Then on the body shot sensor, I'm going to also add an action. It's going to be body shot sensor, start at 280, and end at 310. Okay, cool. Oh, duck down in here as well. There we go. And what we're going to have to do is make sure we're on state 3, because as you notice, he does duck down at the end of state 3. So, what we're going to do here is hold down shift with our movement cube selected, select the body shot and the headshot sensor. I'm going to minimize our actions for that, and I think the other one already is. And then the one that connects to the duck down, so this one here, we also want to connect to the duck down for both headshot and body shot sensor. Also what we're going to do is go along to state 4, and as you'll notice, duck down right here, this one, we want him doing the same thing. So I'm going to hold down shift and make sure the enemy movement is yellow, so that's the main object. And then the one that connects to duck down, this one here, we're going to connect that to duck down for both body sensor, and for not melee, we want the headshot sensor. So that is right at the bottom, which is just convenient. So to make this window full view, I'm going to put my mouse in it, press Control and up arrow, and there we go. And now we'll join this one here, the duck down, to the duck down for the headshot as well. Now as you notice, there is a stand up as well, so again we're going to have to do this over here. So add an action, body shot sensor, 310 to 280, and it's going to be body shot censor, and I guess this can be stand up as well, and then we'll join this up to the stand up animation like that, and our action here is going to be stand up, and again it's going to be for headshot sensor. Scroll in a bit, and it's going to be from 310 to 280 like so, and we'll join that one all the way from the top like that. Okay, cool. So that is the animations done. Now we can put our mouse anywhere in the window, press Control down arrow to get our original layout. And then one more thing, what we're going to do is go along to state these last two down the bottom here, I think state 16 and 17, or 6 and 7, and what we're going to do for these ones is when our player does have 0 health and he does die, go to the dying state, we don't want our sensors staying there, because if they do and our player shoots them again, our character will obviously snap up back to his original position and do the dying animation again. So we want to get rid of these sensors when it's on the dying state. So what I'm going to do is on the body shot sensor, add an edit object, end object, and I'm just going to join this up to the always like that. And for our other one, headshot sensor, which is all the way down here, add an edit object as well, end object, in this window control up arrow like that, and we'll join this one to the always as well like that, end object. Okay, cool, and now I'm going to press control down arrow like that, and now I'm going to go scroll in, go to this state here, click on it, and we'll do the exact same thing. So from the top one, edit object, and if we can scroll out enough, nope, control up arrow, and we'll join this top one all the way down to the edit object down the bottom. Then control down arrow, and that should all be sorted. So we're going to be using these collision sensors down here. So we're going to join them up to state 1 first of all, and that'll just be setting the player running off to state 3 where it's trying to find cover. So up the top here I'm going to add an AND controller, so 2 AND controllers. The first one just for body shot sensor, second one for headshot, and we'll join them both up to setting it to state 3. Then here what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a property, and we need to get rid of some health, so this one I guess can just be body, and it's going to add to our health. So to our player it might add -20 just as a decent value, maybe just because they aren't aware or something. So we'll join that to the body shot controller, so we'll join that to add health -20, labeled body. Then we'll have another one for head, so it's going to be property, and it's going to be for head, and when it does get shot, it's going to add health -50, so sort of like a 2-shot kill if you get shot in the head. So this one here, we'll join that up to that, and there we go, that's that state done. However, say you didn't get shot, or the enemy didn't get shot in the first one, but he did get shot in the second one. So we're going to go along to state 2 here, and we're going to have to do that same thing again. So collision on this one, collision on this one here, and again for bullet, you can call it bullet again if you like, but it'll rename it, which doesn't really matter. This should be for bullet as well. It's going to be tap for both of them, and again 2 AND controllers, join both of them to it like that. And if we look at our states, state 3, it's setting it, so join them both to state 3. Then property over here is going to be body, and this is just going to add to health -20 like before. Join that up to the body. Then the headshot will do the same amount of damage as before, so go to our property, join that up to that, and this can be head or just headshot, and it's going to add health -50 like that. Okay, so I think that's those done. Minimize those, minimize these over here, State 3 is him running to cover. Again, he could be getting shot, so oh, no collision there. Collision for these two, and the headshot sensor as well. Bullet for both of them, and you can call them something else if you like, but I think I'll just leave them because we have body shot sensor with the collision anyway. So both on tap, and that should be fine. 2 AND controllers, join them both together like that. Does it have a state 3? No, because it's already on state 3, so that's fine. We don't need to set it to any state. And then here what we're going to do is add a property. I think I'll just leave it. So add health -20 like before. I guess you can call it body shot, so we have something to call it. Then the other one here, it's going to be headshot, and this is going to be adding health -50 just like before, and we'll join that one to the bottom one, this one to the top one, and minimize that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to over here to state 4. We want him to duck down, obviously, if he does get shot, not just stay up and yeah, watch the bullets fly at him. So what we're going to do, if you notice, we have timer properties here, and when it's equal to 480, we'll go along here, and he has the duck down action. So actually what I'm going to do is, again here, add my collisions for both bullet, and this one down here will be bullet as well, both on tap like so, and we'll add our AND controllers, both of those joint in like that. And what either one of those is going to do is, under our property here, the first one is going to assign, and this time we want timer, I think, and we're going to assign it to 480. So assign to 480. So basically what this will do is, when our player is, you know, in any sort of cycle of ducking down and getting up, as soon as he gets shot, it will send it to 480 and he'll duck down. So we want both of those joined to that. Then 2 properties here, like that. Again, this one will be body shot, health -20, and we have to make sure it's add, not assign. Health and add, and this one's going to be -50. And we'll join that one to that one, and this one to this one. Minimize both of those, minimize these 2, and minimize the last 2. Okay, and the last one, the melee. So in our melee state, even though our player probably shouldn't be, but he's probably still going to have to do some sort of damage, so maybe what we'll do here is add a collision for both again, and we'll just do the same. So bullet, we'll add bullet for both of them, tap for both of them, and then on our enemy movement we're going to add a property for both of them, both on add, and they're going to add health -50 and add health -20 like that. And here we're going to add 2 AND controllers and just join them together like that, and these 2 on this side. Okay, cool. So minimize all of those like that. State 6 and 7, or 16 and 17, don't actually really need any collisions because the player is already dead. However, we don't have anything sending our player to the death state at all. However, if you notice, before we go and put in our trigger to set it to the death state, we have no way of knowing whether to do the body death animation or the headshot animation when our character is meant to die. So to make sure we know which animation to do, what I'm going to do is, on my enemy movement here, is on our health, I'm actually going to change it to be body health. So body health, instead of 100, I'm going to tune it down to 5. Then I'm going to add a head health and integer again, but this time this is only going to be set to 2. So we can put the eye on both of these so we can see what's happening, And basically, just before we do anything else, is on state 1, as you can see, we have body and head. At the body, we want body health, except not minus 20, we want minus 1. The head, we want head health, and instead of minus 50, we just want minus 1. So that's all fine. Then state 2, again, same thing, so health, body health, minus 1. Minimize that. Second one, head health, and minus 1 for that as well. And we'll do the same for the third state, fourth state, and fifth state. So minus 1, body health. Do this last one here, head health, minus 1. State 4, and I think it's these last two, so body health, minus 1, and head health, minus 1. So after that, I'm going to go along to state 5, and I'll just set it up for the last one. Now the good thing about doing this is basically if our player before did get shot a couple times in the body and a couple times in the head, then we would end up with a total of minus 40, which would be sort of silly considering a player can go into negative health. So just setting up these two different ones and only setting them to minus 1 will stop managing to get the property below 0, and again will make it a little bit more stable. So now we're going to go along to our triggering. So if you notice, we go to state 1, we do have collisions for both bullets, however both of those properties go ahead and set it to state 3, so none of them will completely kill the player, so the player will be in state 3 before it dies. So along to state 2, if you notice both of these again join to state 3, so the player will be in state 3 before they die. So in state 3, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to add our sensors. So here, enemy movement, two properties. This one here is going to be called body health, and it's going to be when body health is equal to 0. Minimize that. This one here is going to be head health, like that, and when head health is equal to 0. And then we're going to add two and controllers, a separate one for each one because they're setting it to separate states. Then on the enemy movement, add two state actuators, and this first one here is going to set it to, I think it's our body shot, which is 7 or 17, so we'll go on that, check it, and we'll scroll down, yep, body shot, so that one's fine. Back to state 3, and we'll make our window a little bigger here so we have more working space. So the first one here, the body health is equal to 0, we'll set it to state 17, and state 16 or state 6 we want to join up to the bottom one, like that. So when it's on state 3, our enemy will be able to be killed, however state 4 and state 5 he won't. So state 4, again, what we're going to have to do is add two properties. This one can be body health, and when body health is equal to 0, and the same thing down here but head health, and when head health is equal to 0. And now what we're going to do here, add two AND controllers again, join this one to this one and that one to that one. And on our enemy movement we're going to add two state actuators, so first one here, then the second one, join the first one to that, second one to that, and on the first one we want to set it to state the second one, so state 17 or state 7, so this one right here, and the opposite for this one, so the headshot will be state 6 or state 16. So select that one, head health, body health, so that is all fine. If you want to, you can select tap, but either way the property should be triggered. So minimize both of those and minimize those two. So now at state 3 and 4 he can be killed, state 5 he can't though. So what we're going to do here again is add our two properties, when body health is equal to 0 and when head health is equal to 0. Then again here add two AND controllers, join this one to that and that to that. Then here we're going to add two state actuators. First one obviously is body, so that goes to the last one here, 17. and this one over here goes to this one down here, which is 16. So what I'm going to do now is give our player a gun. So I'm going to press Shift S, cursor to center, Shift A, add myself a cube, move it up like that, press numpad 3, and we're going to press SY to scale on the Y axis. Then I'm going to press Tab to go into edit mode, Z to go into wireframe, then I'm going to press Ctrl R to add a loop cut, move it down, click it there, press A to deselect, B to box select, select this bottom section, then press E to extrude, and it will have locked a direction, so you can get rid of that by just pressing Z, X or Y, so either or, and it'll get rid of it, and we just want to angle it back possibly a little bit like that. Then I'm going to press SY, make it a bit wider, maybe not too wide, something like that, and we'll move this back as well. So we can make this panel bigger here, call this gun, or player gun. Oh, player gun. First of all, what I'm going to do is press RZ180, and then I'm going to press enter. Then I'm going to move it along the y-axis down here, move it down. Maybe that's a bit big for our player, so I'm going to press S to scale on all the axes, then move it down here, and maybe we want it on our right side, so move it down here and something like that. So our player has a gun with bullets to shoot. Then I'm going to hold down Shift, select the cube or the player, then press Ctrl P and parent like that. And then here, our player gun, we need some animation, so at frame 0, what we're going to do, press I, insert location rotation, then we're going to go along to frame 3, or frame 3, there we go, and then RX, and move it back, not too far, maybe just something like that, then press I, insert location rotation, then go back to frame 0, set this to graph editor, then scroll out a bit, press A to deselect in this window, Control K, and then Shift D GX5. So what we did just there is duplicated the keyframe at frame 0, so Control K would select it, and then Shift D to duplicate, and GX5 moves it along to frame 5. So now we have a small animation like that, just so we know we're shooting and it's working. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a mouse, left button should be fine, and here I'm going to add an action. This is going to be for gun action, and it's going to start at frame 0 and at frame 5, and we're going to join those two together. So now I'm going to select my player here, and I'm going to press Shift S and cursor to selected, so it'll go to our player. Then I'm going to press Shift A, so I'm just going to add an empty, then I'm going to move it along, move it up here, move it up a bit, and something like that, maybe this way a bit more, and we'll move it down. Okay, so it's facing in this direction, and it's in the middle of the gun like that. This is going to be our bullet spawner, so instead of empty we can call it bullet spawner. Bullet spawner, like that. Our gun here, we don't need to have any collision, so we'll quickly change that to no collision. So our empty here, we need to parent to our gun, so I'm going to hold down Shift with my empty selected, select the gun, press Ctrl P and parent. Now just to make sure nothing funny happens, I'm going to select my gun, press Ctrl A and apply the scale. So now we're going to go to layer 2 down here, and we're going to press Shift S, cursor to center, then view's going all funny, so I'm going to press numpad 5, and this will go into orthographic view, let me move around a lot more freely. Then I'm going to press Shift A, and here I'm going to add my bullets, so this is going to be a cylinder. Now in this window here, make it a bit bigger, don't need a lot of vertices, so I'll set that to 8, just so it's not using up a lot, and we can actually just set it down to 6, that should be fine. It's moving so fast we won't see it anyway. So then I'm going to press RY90, and then SX, and something like that. Then I'm going to press Tab, select one face, so this one or this one, whichever. Then I'm going to press EX, move it out here, then press Alt M, and merge at center, like that. Then we'll press Tab, and there's our bullet model done. Then under shading here, I'm going to select smooth, just under the tools, and instead of static, I'm going to select dynamic, and make sure it's an actor. And collision bounds, it's moving fast, so we may as well, you can leave it at box, although I'm going to change it to cylinder. Now under our cylinder, or I should probably call it bullet, what we first of all need to do is add the property bullet, like that, and here we're going to add an always censor, add a motion, join the two together, and we'll check the local axes. So a negative Z is forwards, so here we'll do negative Z, maybe 0.4 or 0.5, that should be fine. Then minimize these. Now back to state 1, and we'll select our empty here of our player's gun. Then what we're going to do is add an add object, and this is going to add the object bullet, but not for very long, so maybe half a second, so 30. And our bullet spawner, we only want it to add the object when our player clicks, or clicks a mouse. So I'm going to hold down shift, select my gun, and then I'm going to join this AND controller to the add object. So now we spawn in a bullet and we play our action. So we'll quickly test it out by pressing numpad 0, and we'll go into texture view to get rid of the crazy colors, and then we'll press P, and oh, I think we nearly spawned one in, but it was way too big. So back to layer 2, select this, press S to scale, and then press Ctrl A, apply scale. And as you notice, I think we had negative Z before, which wasn't working, so I'm going to change it to 0.6. Going to select my local axes again, and it does look like it's going in a funny direction, so I'm going to press tab, A to deselect everything, A to select everything, and then RZ minus 90, so it's facing in the Y direction, which it's getting shot off at. And then I'm going to press tab to go out of edit mode. Now I need to apply the rotation, so Control A, apply rotation, and Control A, apply scale. The collision bounds are still funny, so I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to change this just to box. Now if we press 0 and press P and we shoot, we can see our bullet goes forward, not very fast, but our whole gun disappears. Reason for that is, if we go to our action, we chose gun action, which is actually the enemy's gun action, so we need player gun action. Now if we press P, there we go, we have our animation going, and our awesome little bullets going all over the place, although they are way too slow. So I'm going to go to layer 2 here, select my bullet, press S to make it smaller for a start, then Control A, apply scale, and I'm going to turn this up here. Again, what we could do is linear velocity, select local, and maybe turn that up to 4. So layer 1, I'm going to do is move my gun up just a bit, press P, and just so it's a bit more level. What we might do though before we start testing everything is turn off our body hit sensors. So down here, make them invisible, and same for this one here, make them invisible. Then also what we can do is the sensors behind here, we can make them invisible as well, just to give it a bit more of a cleaner look. One over here, invisible, invisible. This one over here, that one on the corner, and I think this one in the vision cone, so Z to go into wireframe, select this, and invisible. What we need to change though is we need him starting at state 1, not at state 3, so make sure you set the initial to state 1. Then also what we're going to do is, I should have done this quite a while ago, is we're going to fix the animation glitch when he is looking side to side. So if we select our enemy rig here, and we go along to frame, when does he start looking round? Frame 130 I think it is, to 230. His legs split apart for some unknown reason. So what I'm going to do is, with my enemy rig selected, go to pose mode, and go along here, frame 130. The legs are fine, so I'm actually going to select the legs just by pressing B and box selecting all of his legs. So to find the next keyframe, from 130, 130 down here, press up arrow, and I don't think there's a keyframe for any of the legs there because it's blank here, so up arrow again, nothing, and then up arrow again, and nothing in here yet, and to the next one in here, 235, we need to reset that to be the same as 130. Back to 130 here, then I'm going to box select just the legs because they are the problem. So in the graph editor window here, what I'm going to do is press A to select everything, A to deselect everything, just to make sure there's no outliers or anything. Then I'm going to press Control K to select that one keyframe. Then we want to move it 105, so Shift D and then GX105, and you can see in the bottom corner what you've typed in, and then you can press enter and that should override it. So now if we scroll along, his feet stand still. What we need to do though is give our gun some animations. So what I'm going to do is select my gun here, and we need a quick shooting animation, which I'm sure we can slip in these first few frames here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press I, insert location rotation at frame 0. So select the gun. If you're not sure, you can press Z to go into wireframe, make sure it's selected. Then at frame 0 we're going to press I, insert location rotation. However, I don't think that is exactly facing forward, so I'm going to press RZ to rotate on the Z axis just a bit. Then I'm going to press I, insert location rotation, then to frame 3, just like with our player gun. Then I'm going to press G, Y, and then Y again, so it moves backwards in the player's hands like that. And then I, insert location rotation. Then also what I'm going to do is press RX and then X again and rotate it on the X axis, and I, insert location rotation. So then back to frame 0 down here. In this window here, graph editor, we're going to press A to deselect, making sure you're on frame 0, Control K, and then Shift D, GX, and we want to move it 5, so 5, and then we can press enter, and there we go, we have a small animation. If you don't think it's far enough, we can go back to 3, press G, Y, and then Y again, move it back, press I, insert location rotation, and there we go, it's a bit more obvious. Now what we need is our enemy here to have some bullets spawning in for him as well, so Shift A, and we're going to add an empty, move it up, move it this way, and we're going to move it, yes, up here, Y axis, X axis, and then RZ, rotate on the Z axis, and we'll move it in like that. Okay, cool, and move it down. So something like that, and we just want it at the front of the gun. Then here we can call this enemy bullet spawner, like that. And then we're going to hold down Shift, select the gun, press Control P, and parent. Now before you do anything else, make sure you select the gun, press Control A, and apply the scale. Okay, cool. So we'll select this now, enemy bullet spawner. And here we're going to add an add object. It's going to be for bullet again, and we want this object bullet to have a ending time of possibly 60 or 30, just like our other player. We'll go to layer 2 now, select our bullet, and then last time we played it, it was a bit big, so I'm going to press S again, make it a little smaller. I'm going to turn up this linear velocity to 20, and maybe that will go a bit better. Then back to layer 1. Now what we need to do is select our gun, add an action, and this is going to be for our gun action 01. It's going to start from frame 0 and at frame 5, and then along here we're going to go to state 4 when he's shooting, so behind cover. So basically what we want is we want him shooting when he is behind cover and he sort of ducks up and follows the player, so we want him doing it then. So if we go along to our enemy movement, find our edit object, our track 2 here, and and go to the top, find it again, this AND controller here, so this one right here, as you can see it's joined to the track 2, and we're going to join it up to our action. Then I guess you can call this shoot, minimize that. Then what we can do is hold down shift, select our empty here, and we'll scroll down, there's our edit object, there's our AND controller here, and we'll join this up to our bullet spawner, so it'll be constantly doing that the whole time. And now if we go along to our property here, the interval one, from 480 to 570, this is when our character will get up and he'll, look at the player. So what we're going to do for that is we don't want him constantly shooting and constantly playing the animation, so we're going to turn up the frequency to maybe 10 or something like that, maybe a little bit less, maybe 6, or even just 3, just for the bullets so they aren't constant. And then we're going to minimize that. I'm going to press numpad 0, go to texture view, press P. His gun, however, is really small, which is very weird. So what I'm going to do is check that doesn't have any scaling animations, so change that to object mode, select our gun, and move this over here. And apparently it has a location rotation scale animation, so we don't need any of the scaling keyframes here. So I'm going to select the top one, press X, the next one press X, and this one press X, because we don't need any scaling animations. And actually one more thing we need to do is on our player here, we'll select the gun. What we also want to do is add a message actuator on our gun here. It's going to be the subject shoot, and if we select our movement cube here on layer 1 or state 1, when it's get the message noise, we could have that, and gunshot. That was the message we need, not shoot. So select our object here, and this is going to be gunshot, like that, and it's also going to send it out every time you tap it, like that. Okay. Now what I might also do, turn up the lifetime, because the bullet doesn't really seem to get far, and just to make it fair, I'm going to select the empty on our enemy here, go to state 4, and I'm also going to set that to 60. One more thing, as you notice, if our player isn't behind cover, we haven't set it up so he can shoot at all. So what we're going to do is when he isn't behind cover, so this one here, we want him shooting. So we'll join that up to the shooting and make sure this frequency is set to something like 3. Back to state 1, numpad 0, we'll go to texture, scroll out a bit, press P, and as you notice, when he is shooting, it's going backwards, and he seems to have been able to shoot himself, which probably isn't any good. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press Z to go into wireframe. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to press RZ180. Then I'm going to press enter, and hopefully that will have fixed it. So now I'm going to press 0, go back to textured, press P. Now if you notice, his recoil does go up a bit, but when he is looking straight at us, you'll notice he's firing to the side of us, which can't be too good. And also on top of that, you see the gun just snaps in when he pops up, so it just snaps into midair, which isn't too good either. So the first one, the gun problem, what we're going to do is go to layer 1, I'm going to press Z to go into wireframe, I'm going to select our gun, try to fix the problem, so state 4, and we have a stand up, and I think the shooting colliding. So stand up, the priority is going to be 1, shooting priority is going to be 2. Then on top of that, to 80, what we might want to do is press RZ, rotate on the Z axis, and have him facing forward, or at least the gun. Then we can press I, insert location rotation. Okay, so although we did realign it back here, our original problem is with the shooting animations. They are off to the side, so I'm going to press RZ, make them face forward, or very close to it, something like that. I, insert location rotation. Then I'm going to duplicate it to frame 5, so in this graph editor window, A to deselect everything, Control K, then Shift D, G, X, 5, and then we'll press enter. So frame 3, we're going to press RZ and realign it as well. Then I, insert location rotation. Then we'll do a gunshot. He decides to go over there. Oh, it does go in a straight line. And so our player's behind cover. As you can see, the animations do give him a bit of recoil, but it's still in our direction, which is good. Again, another problem I think is, yeah, if we get close enough like that, and he's meant to be running after us like that, and we have him shooting off into the side. So again, what we could do is, for his running animation, so just as a small demo, what I'm going to do is look at running, 2, 3, 5, it starts off at, and I'm just going to spin the gun so it's facing towards a player. Now what you might want to do is realign the arms and stuff so that animation works together. However, I'm just doing it so the bullets go forward, just because I've added this empty to the gun. So I'm going to press I, insert location rotation, next keyframe, again, just so it's forward, like that, and we'll do it for the next one as well, 255, RZ, or just R, forward, I, insert location rotation, up arrow, R to rotate, forward, I, insert location rotation, up to the next one, R to rotate, forward, and then I, insert location rotation, and that's the last one, 275. Okay, so now if we press P and shoot, our player goes and runs behind some cover. For example, this one over here, he'll duck behind it, get up, shoot towards us, or he's meant to at least, and I think he's not touching the cube he's meant to be. So now he is, and he'll duck behind cover and do the same again, and just do that continuously. Again, one thing you might want to do is add muzzle flare and fancy effects to make it more obvious he's shooting at you. Obviously, if you're doing it for a proper game, you do that. And also for the sensors behind the cover, you might want to make them bigger, otherwise it's easy for him to just, you know, touch it and then slightly move off to the side, and he's trying to run at you behind the cover, which is sort of silly. So again, we could make these a little bigger, but yeah, that's just up to you if you think that is necessary. But apart from that, there we go. I think that is all of it done. So there we go, guys, that's the end of the tutorial and the end of the tutorial series. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to leave a like or a comment or share or any of that stuff. It is all greatly appreciated. I'd also like to say thanks for all the great support during the entire series. But that is the series done, so that means that next tutorial will be something different. So again, hope you enjoyed the video, have an awesome week, and I'll see you guys in the next video.